tell us what happened early this morning on East 34th Street?
Sure. So early this morning, actually at approximately 2:45 this morning, officers were called to the 1600 block of East 34th Street in Lorain in regards to two males who had been shot.
And what was the fact situation? What had they been doing at work, and what were they doing when this happened?
So the two males shot are actually auxiliary officers for the Lorain Police Department. They had just finished their support patrol shift. They had dropped off their cruiser. They were actually in their personal car, but still in uniform on their way. One of them was going to drop someone else off, the other officer off, and then go home himself.
Can you describe the interaction between them and whoever was in this other car, and then how it led to the shooting?
Sure. So basically, the statement that we have at this point is they were on their way home. They saw somebody tailgating them pretty aggressively, so much so that they pulled over to let the person pass in a darker colored sedan type vehicle. They pulled over to let that person pass in the 1600 block of East 34th Street. And at that time, they heard gunshots.
And can you describe where they were hit and I guess describe their injuries?
Sure. So the driver was actually hit on the finger. The driver was identified as Auxiliary Officer Mott, and the passenger was Auxiliary Officer Meisen. They were Officer Mott, the driver, again, was hit on the finger. He sustained a laceration to his finger, whereas Officer Mott sustained a non-life-threatening wound to the forehead.
Can you describe how the folks on the police department feel about this? A lot of people may not understand the relationship between, fully sworn officers who carry a gun and a badge and auxiliaries, but can you describe that relationship and how you and the other officers feel about what happened here?
Well, yes, sir. You're right. There's a good, strong relationship. Our auxiliary officers are our officers. They're a part of the LPD family just as much as the chief of police down to the newest officer, full-time sworn here. So our auxiliary officers are our brothers and sisters. It's noteworthy. We acknowledge that this is something that is unique. We don't have a lot of crime like this as far as officers being involved. And at this point, I think it is important to note that we're not certain that the law enforcement affiliation is a factor in the motive for the crime itself. However, I digress. We work every shooting, regardless of whether it's a police officer or not involved as the victim, as well as we can. We give 100% every time. But there is something, unique about this one that obviously, one of your own fell victim, two of them.
Have they been able to shed any light on what happened? Was there anything that happened while they were working in this patrol shift? Or was there anything between them leaving the station and being on East 34th that could have precipitated this happening?
Nothing that's been conveyed to us at this point. Everything that's in the press release appears to be what we know. Again, it is still a crime that's under investigation. So there are certain things that we really can't release, but at this point, there's nothing that we know that we could attribute a motive for.
What is your best description of the suspect car? And do you have any description at all of any of the people that were in the car?
Yeah, so the suspect vehicle description, the best that we have at this point is a black in color, newer model sedan type vehicle. It's unknown how many occupants were in the car, obviously at least one. So it's something that at this point we're still hoping to learn any tips or any kind of things that we can to really direct the investigation. But as it stands, that's about the best description that we have right now.
Why is it important to stop whoever is responsible for this, Sergeant?
Oh, well, I think, you know what, no matter what the situation is, whether it was somebody who was targeting law enforcement officers or whether it was somebody who was randomly committing acts of violence, either way, there's not a good scenario. There's not a justifiable scenario there. This is somebody who clearly has very little regard for human life, and is either impulsive or vindictive to the point where they're a danger to society.
And were both the officers treated and released from mercy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the shot in the forehead, was that like some kind of shrapnel or something, or was it actually a bullet that hit him in the forehead?
So at this point, it's unclear exactly the manner of impact. We are certain that it was a bullet, and whether that was a ricochet or whether that was shrapnel, that's still kind of unknown. But yeah, it's unknown exactly the manner. That's something that will be reconstructed through the investigative process with bullet trajectory and things like that.
It would seem that he's very fortunate, whatever he was hit with in the forehead, that he was treated at the hospital and released. I guess your thoughts on that and the feelings that this young fellow was able to go home after this ordeal.
Sure. No, I mean, it's a great relief that it didn't work out, worse, that it didn't have a more sad ending. So we're there's a certain amount of relief. There's a certain amount of I guess thankfulness that it didn't work out that way. It doesn't change to us. It doesn't change the assault itself. Anybody that would point a gun into a vehicle and shoot at the occupants who are inside doesn't have good intentions. And the fact that we're very fortunate that nobody did lose their life, or we're fortunate that nobody was, injured to the point where they're permanently disabled or permanent disfigurement. I think it's still, the seriousness of this crime is not missed by the officers here. This is a very serious crime. It's a very serious incident, one that we are investigating to the fullest of our abilities.
Are you looking at cameras, whether it be a ring camera or surveillance cameras from homes, and then maybe businesses in the larger neighborhood that might show some images of the car?
So yeah, the detective bureau is working it. I don't know exactly what means they're investigating, but these are all things that anything that we can find, that we can get to help kind of narrow down what happened and give us a better picture or a better description to be able to share with the public or to be able to follow up on, is something that I'm sure that they're working on. Obviously, we have a great detective bureau. I'm obviously a little bit partial, but our guys and gals in the DB here at Lorain are excellent at what they do. So I'm certain that they're leaving no stone unturned. As far as the specifics go, I don't know. I don't know where they're at and what they're doing currently.
Thank you.
Hey, Sergeant, can you share any information about what assignment they were coming from or what they were doing at that hour for the
Sure.
officer?
Yeah, absolutely. So we typically have regular shifts called support patrol or support detail, where our auxiliary officers will help us do certain things. So first off, they'll work typically our busier nights, often weekend nights, but they'll typically support us however they can. So that may be something as simple as waiting with a vehicle while the tow truck comes for a vehicle that may be damaged in a crash. They'll take the time. They'll wait with that vehicle so that there's a police personnel there while the tow truck comes, and that way the officers can maybe go follow up at the hospital if there were injuries or something like that. It just it's really a force multiplier. It enables us to get so much more done. They also in their downtime are conducting extra checks of property of businesses, just making sure that there's not a broken window or a potential burglary in progress. They really it's a job that they do, and they line up to do it, and we're so thankful to have them. So again, they were finishing up their shift on that support detail.
Is that a launching pad to become a fully sworn officer? Would a 20-year-old, would that be the career track that they're taking?
Certainly, it can be. So it's a great opportunity to learn the radio traffic, to learn the streets, to learn the businesses, to learn procedural things that we do as police officers. So it's not only for younger people who are looking to get into a career in the police field. We have some people who are older and they just want to serve their community. They're not necessarily looking to get in full time anywhere or necessarily be a full-time officer. They just want to be a part of, again, supporting their police department so that that they can serve their community. But for the younger applicants, for the younger officers there, it is a great way to I guess just kind of get your feet wet and experience a little bit of what the police field has to offer, and maybe even see some of the challenges that it brings.
Is there anything
I'm sorry, you can go first.
I was just going to say, is there anything the public can do now to help, with this investigation? Anything they should be specifically looking for?
Yeah, so with the public, we would always want to make sure that they're aware that any kind of tips, or anonymous or otherwise, if they wanted to contact our detective bureau, which the number there is 440-204-2105. We would ask that anybody with any information, I think Mr. Shea mentioned, cameras, camera footage, things that could be helpful that they may see that we didn't know was valuable at the time. Sometimes family members who are struggling with something, or family members who are maybe not feeling well, that they think are involved in this or could be involved in this, and that it's worth a follow-up. We would ask that anybody in the public do the right thing, contact the detective bureau, 440-204-2105, leave a message, and any help that we can get is obviously much appreciated. Really, it's helping the city.
After the two auxiliary officers were injured, were they able to transport themselves to Mercy Hospital, or was that done by a fire department or paramedic vehicle?
So the officers, the victims, were transported by Life Care.
Okay. And did they report the shooting themselves, or was there a bystander or area resident who called that in?
They were able to speak with the officers on scene. So it's unclear in the report whether they called, but it appears as though they did.
Okay, thank you.
And how many other officers showed up to assist?
Several officers. A shooting is obviously a serious call. So typically we'll get a flood of officers, especially while we're looking for maybe a suspect vehicle, like in this situation in the area. There's always a crime scene. So there's things that need to be kind of taped off and secured, a large area typically. So in this, most of the officers on the ship responded initially. And then as the scene became secure, the scene became safe, and we realized how many officers we needed, one at a time, they kind of go back into service, and they're able to continue to handle calls for service.
Do you guys have any camera footage or pics or anything you could share with us already, or do you have anything so far?
We don't have anything at this time that we're able to release, just because it is still an investigation in progress. So in order to keep the integrity of that investigation, we really can't release much of anything. Obviously there's dash cam and things like that, but we really can't release any of that at this point.